want to start with the Channel because you were in the Channel this morning and you were seeing dinghies being escorted through essentially to British waters, weren't you? You called it straight away that the Stop the Boats policy is not having an impact. It's all about the weather.
Last Monday, Sunak turns up in Dover. Not something that was pre-announced, but they knew it was going to be a windy day. So we could stand there in Dover Harbour, knowing with certainty that not a single dinghy would cross, and say, look at us, we're doing fantastically well. Crossings over the Mediterranean are up 30%. It's 20% down to our country this year so far. Our policies are beginning to work. And I said live from the chair that you're in now last Monday, wait till next Sunday, because I could see the forecast.
Yeah.
The anticyclone that had dominated the weather down from the North Sea for all this time has gone. So we saw 87 come on Saturday, 616 came yesterday, and today, I don't yet know. I was out this morning. It was like a full-scale French naval operation. It was foggy in places, it was dangerous, and the French Navy, as I left, there were 4 French naval vessels escorting dinghies towards border force.
So when Rishi Sunak stood up and said the French have stopped 50% more boats than they did last year...
It was a full-scale French naval operation today to shepherd them to border force, and you can listen in to the Channel. We're not supposed to, but you can listen to the Channel when they talk to each other. And it's like, you know, there you go, boys, and border force say, oh, thanks ever so much.
Really?
It's unbelievable. So the boats have not been stopped. There is no disincentive. Yes, we've sent a few Albanians back, but we're seeing now people coming from the Punjab increasingly. And nothing this government has done is going to make a blind bit of difference. And I would be very surprised if over the next 2 months 10,000 don't come.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, we'll just do with the Indians who are coming over what we did with the Albanians, which is let a load of them come in, let them join a backlog, and then in a couple of years' time we'll have some government committee who says, oh, sorry, they're not actually seeking asylum at all.
Well, and we've also learned that anyone that comes by boat through the traffickers will be treated the same as anybody else making an application for asylum. So actually government policy in the last week has softened, not hardened, and it brings me to a bigger point.
Yeah.
Can we actually trust anything Rishi Sunak says?
Well, on that note, this brings me on to the other big story of the day. And as you can imagine, Nigel, my inbox here has been full of a pretty straightforward question, so I will just ask it to you. Are you going to join political forces with Boris Johnson?
First things first, there's an open civil war now going on between Sunak and Johnson. I thought the Sunak comment on the news a moment ago about the honours list and why some of them weren't accepted.
Yeah.
That, you know, there was Sunak saying he didn't think it was right. So he's kind of telling you Johnson's dodgy.
Yes.
You know, this is turning very, very nasty. Now, I think the Conservative Party are back to being an establishment party, and there's only one winner, in my view, in this battle between Sunak and Johnson. I think Johnson ultimately will be driven out of the party. That's the view that I take. Yes, there are loyalists like Jacob Rees-Mogg and people like that, but, you know, the one thing the Conservative Party will not live with is what it sees as disloyalty. And walking out and handing, without even a battle, the Uxbridge seat to the Labour Party is not something that will go down well. And you see, yes, of course, the usual suspects like Lord Heseltine, but there are people saying this man must never stand again for us for a parliamentary seat. And so I would say this, if Johnson wants a future involved in active politics, and if he wants to try and fight for the Brexit legacy, which, if there is a big Labour majority, it could be game on again as far as Brexit's concerned, albeit in stages, you know, single market rules, associate membership, you can see the route it will go. And he's got to consider doing something outside of the Conservative Party. And that was why I talked about reform, Richard Tice, me, characters like that. You know, we could be a few years away from having to refight the Brexit battle. And I think Johnson should think about it.
You and Boris are absolutely massive in the Red Wall. And that surely is a gift that you don't want to turn down.
Well, I mean, look, you know, Boris and I disagree fundamentally on some of the net zero lunacy.
Yes.
His completely relaxed approach to open-door immigration. We have different views. But I've never met anybody in politics whose policies can turn on a sixpence the way they can with Boris, and he could reinvent himself. You know, he's very good at all of that, and he does carry it off. Look,
so the door's open.
You know, I mean, frankly, when it comes to thinking over the next few years how we can fight for the Brexit legacy, I've not always been his biggest fan at all. But when it comes to the really big issue of our independence, what I was saying over the last couple of days is, if we could work together to save the Brexit legacy, we should certainly think about it. But for him, it would mean being outside the Conservative Party. And that's probably very difficult for him or his supporters to accept. But I see Sunak winning this battle.
Yeah, OK, so you think Sunak will win the battle? And do you think that there is something more wide at the heart of this, which is that an individual who did win a stonking majority at the last general election can be ousted by a committee and then potentially be banned from having a parliamentary passport for his life?
Well, unfortunately, Patrick, he gave too much ammunition to his enemies. Too many unforced errors, and we saw this all through his premiership, and actually we'll look back on it as being a tragedy. An 80-seat majority, something that I did my best to help him with all of that, and a chance to really change politics for good. He did none of it.